Boom, there it is, ladies and gents. Man, we're doing some online screen here, but what if we had another way to meet some fun people? Live events are great. Virtual events can be better after you listen to today's episode. So if you're in the virtual event space, you're going to want to listen to this one. Here we go. Let's get this one on the road.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. All right, ladies and gents, look, during the pandemic, we lost the ability to meet people in person or to have major events to network and mingle. Then we were introduced to this thing called Zoom, and at scale, we ushered the era of video calls and live remote events. Today, we're finally getting back into the in-person events, but virtual events are still ever so popular. And today's guest is making virtual dialogue even more entertaining and productive, and I can't wait to hear all about it. So let's welcome to the show from airmeet.com, Mr. Mark Kilens. Welcome to the show, Mark. By the way, look at that. We got Senator Porter already on here. Let's go, business bros. That's what I'm talking about. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me. By far the best podcast intro I've ever had. Major props.
Oh, dude, hands down. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, man, look, if you're not having fun, then why the hell are you doing it? That's all I got to say about that, right? You got to have some fun, making fun content, because at the end of the day, this show is about your story, right? So right before the show, you were going to tell me your first entrepreneurial venture before we get into this whole, Airmeets thing. Tell me about that, man. How'd you get into, what was that bug that bit you for the entrepreneurial space?
Yeah, so back when I was like 12 years old, I grew up in New Hampshire, and we had like this small hill in my yard. And I love snowboarding, love the winter, but we just got snow so late. It was like, it didn't come until like maybe November, December. And, when I was going to the mountains, I saw all these machines that could make snow. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, why can't I have that in my house? So this is back in like 1999, 1998, 99. Like, internet was really early. Google like was just created. I remember going to all these search engines trying to find out like how to make snow. Home snow.
You trying to ask Jeeves?
I definitely did. Definitely did. And I found one website, this guy down in Pennsylvania that said, look, all you really need is an air compressor, a T. So a T is a plumbing fitting that basically allows, water or air to intersect at a 90-degree angle, and like a pipe cap basically. And you drill a hole in that pipe cap. Because I was like looking at the machines of the mountain. And sure enough, I got an air compressor from Home Depot, used just a regular, garden hose connected to my parents' well, and I was able to make snow. And that led me down a journey to make snow for other people's, at other people's homes, birthday parties, kids' play dates, whatever. That parlayed into me getting an internship at like the leading North American snowmaking company out of Massachusetts called HKD Snowmakers. You can look them up, HKD. And like, so that was the first real entrepreneurial thing that I did.
Dude, you made snow. That's dope. Okay, folks. So first of all, you're talking to a Californian here, right? So we don't get snow. It just doesn't happen around here. We literally have to go to the mountains, and it is only during the winter. And half the time we go to the slopes out there, it's a man-made snow, dude. It's super cool to be able to have that in your own backyard. Does it last very long? I mean, how did it work out? Was it cost effective?
I mean, yeah, it's just regular snow, because like the air compressor the compressed air from the air compressor allowed the water to super cool. So I started to geek out about like physics and a little chemistry. So I went down this huge rabbit hole, and I was able to make after working at this this company a little bit. They actually created a snowmaking machine that you could buy for your own home use. It was like $3,000. They don't make it anymore. You can still find them online. Yeah, I mean, I was making snow piles that were like 6 feet tall. My friends were super pumped. We were making snow in like late September. Once you get to 32 degrees or 28 degrees, depending on how high the humidity is, you can make snow. So like, as you can tell, I'm still a pretty big geek of this. My 2 kids will eventually see me make snow very soon when they get older, and we're going to have fun.
But the model you made wasn't $3,000, right? I mean, you didn't pay $3,000 to create your snow.
No, you could go to Home Depot right now, buy an air compressor. I'm not sure how much air compressors cost these days. Probably around $500 for an air compressor. Probably need like $50 to $60 in like brass, copper, plumbing fittings, a stand. I mean, I was literally using a 6-foot ladder in the early days. I was in the newspaper. I was actually interviewed by the BBC at one point. Like, it was crazy, and I was on TV, and I mean, it was fun, and people were like, I want you to do that at my house. That's like super cool.
Right? I got a little hill in my backyard. Now you got me thinking, dude. Not just that, all right? I teach a high school course called Financial Algebra, 17-year-old high school seniors, and they're thinking about different businesses. I'm going to pitch this one. I'm going to be like, look, dudes, like, this is a small capital investment, $500-600 capital investment to get into this space. And you're literally having parties, like snowball fights and little snowboarding stuff. I mean, in your backyard, kids will love it. They'll die for that sort of stuff. Christmas is around the corner, making it a white Christmas. Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, if it's cold enough, and as long as you're okay with being awake a lot at night, because that's when it's cold, at night typically, right? So like, but like, yeah, 1 or 2 jobs will easily cover the cost, right? And then it's just pure profit, basically. So, I mean,
after that.
Yeah.
And you're using their water hose anyway, so it works out when you get there. All right, man, let's talk about where you're at today. All right, so that's how the entrepreneurial bug bit you. That's it. Like, for me, my very first business was computer repair. It did really well, and then it really flopped, and I went completely broke. But by then, I was like, all right, next one I do, I'm going to do it right? And that's kind of how, like, I got into this space. So you got into it through Snow. Where are you at today? What are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm at a company called Airmeet, like you mentioned, and we help businesses put on better events. It could be a virtual digital event. It could be a hybrid event. That's an in-person event plus digital. We're just trying to help people join together and form connections, create relationships. It's not just about the content. Yes, we can talk about what makes a great event. But my feeling now is, after being at 2 of the fastest growing startups in the SaaS business, Drift and HubSpot. I was at HubSpot for 8.5 years, saw them go from 15 million and helped them grow to 600 million. Events are one of the best things a business can do today. And we can get deep into this. And so for me, like, and actually how I joined HubSpot, I was at this really small company that was like super early stage, and we found out about HubSpot because I went to Google. This is a funny story. I went to Google and typed in how to generate more leads, because it's 2008. I'm like, I got to figure out how to generate more leads, or this business is not going to do too well. So I go to Google. Guess what comes up? HubSpot. The blog, obviously. And the rest is history. I fell in love with the company, fell in love with the business, and I had to find a way to get to that fast growing startup. And so that's kind of a side story, but events to me are like the pinnacle of this. Like right now, this is an event. We're streaming this live to LinkedIn. This is an event, you're going to repurpose this for your podcast. This is an event. This is media. This is a lot of things, right? So we can unpack that more, but you can tell that I'm super passionate about just helping people come together and have conversations.
So tell me, okay, you have a platform that is bringing people together, right? Zoom did that for a lot of people during the pandemic. So how, when people are like, what do you do? And you have to describe it as, well, you know what Zoom is, like we do it better. How would you describe that to people?
Great question. Zoom is great for meetings. You meet people, right? And just have very one-on-one or small group conversations. But you've been in a Zoom, right? When you have 50 people, 100 people, even 25 people. It's pretty impersonal, right? It's pretty bland. There's not many ways to engage. You don't really have any options to create excitement. It's gotten a little bit better. They've added some features. I give Zoom credit. But with something like Airmeet, you can create interactive games right in the experience. You could set up speed networking with a click of a button, and it automatically randomizes people into one-to-one networking matches for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, or whatever it might be, right?
Speed dating.
Yeah, you can do speed dating in Airmeet. You can. So again, that type of stuff is what we're doing.
That's definitely going to make it fun, right? Because at the end of the day, if I'm going to sit on another meeting and kind of, be half dressed and kind of a third paying attention, not really caring to be there. It's not going to work out for me. I want it to be engaging. I want it to be fun. How does it compare to like an in-person event? What are you getting as far as feedback in the engagement? And what business owners really want to know, can I make more money? Can I sell stuff when I'm using something like Airmeet?
Well, so I love in-person events. I think a business, it all depends on, of course, the size of the business, your revenue model, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, a business needs to have a balanced portfolio of acquisition methods. And, when you think about an event, the most important metric is cost per attendee. So for an in-person event, a good event planner, a good event marketing, leader is always going to think about how much does it cost me per attendee with all in expenses, venue, food, entertainment, all of it. And that typically for like a big summit conference type event, it can be between like low end $500, high end $2,500. An attendee, that's how much it costs for one attendee. So that's why you try to offset those costs through maybe charging for tickets, sponsors, etc. For a virtual event, digital event, granted, it's not the same experience like an in-person event, 100% not the same, but depending on what you're trying to do with a digital event, it can be just as good because for the attendee, you're asking them, first off, to make typically less of a commitment. And depending on how you design the event and set the expectations of the event, you're making the event actually something that's more I would say convenient for them. You can make it more personal to them. You can follow up faster. You can also make it less expensive for yourself. That's what I'm getting at, where the cost per attendee for a virtual event, even if you do things like, hey, I'm going to send you something before the event, I'm going to send you something after the event, so you really create a memorable impression of that person for that person, it's still going to be typically way less than an in-person event. So my approach today that we recommend to people is like, hey, to build that community, to build up that brand reputation, that brand presence, you want to have, a portfolio of digital events that come in all different sizes and flavors that are short, not 3 hours, 30 minutes, an hour, maybe 90 minutes, that are like short segments, dynamic, all with an intentional purpose for a specific audience. And then you want to have at least one or two probably bigger events to bring the people in your community, within your brand, that are going to make the trip that you want to have there to the mega event, right? Because you want them to come together. So I think it's all about coming up with an event strategy that works both for your attendees and your business. And now, because of the pandemic and all these changes in our behaviors and et cetera, you kind of have to do both.
So it sounds to me like you're kind of creating a people funnel in a way, right? So first we start off with the virtual events. It brings your costs down low. The commitment is low for the person who's coming in, but you can also allocate some of those costs to send them, matching t-shirts and I don't have it here, but little icons that you can wave on the screen, stuff that you can do just to kind of get that engagement going. And then kind of use that to funnel in the people who can actually do the traveling and meet in an in-person event. But by then, you already have rapport. You already have connection. Like it's a completely different experience when you walk into one of these major events and people know each other. They know that, they recognize that face. They've had an experience. They know the stories for each other. I think that kind of could potentially increase the attendance that you get at a live event. Is that what you're kind of seeing as people use Airmeet?
You nailed it. And actually, this idea was born from my time at HubSpot. We did this exact same thing. We were just calling them like online training, events, webinars back in the day. And it was all through like GoToWebinar. It was, GoToWebinar is a little bit better now, but like it was even, a version of Zoom that was not as good. It was extremely kind of cumbersome, unengaging, but we did that. And like HubSpot is actually this week, we're doing this live, but if you listen to the recording, beginning of September, they're doing their inbound event in Boston. 10,000 plus people are at that event. Massive event. I used to go to that all the time. You just nailed it though. Like I would meet people that went to one of these training classes that we did live online, one of these webinars, one of these HubSpot user groups that are now both in person and digital. Used to be just in person in small local cities with like 50 to maybe 200 people. I would meet like those people at inbound and they would say, Mark, I've been on like 3 of your training events. I saw you at a hug. This This is amazing. I'm so happy we could spend a half an hour right now together. And this whole inbound event is just blowing my mind. And like I think what you just said completed the entire idea of creating an event wave, using events to build up that wave of interest, that wave of connection, and that ultimately, like, the wave of revenue. Because if you engage enough of your audience over time, I think of it as engagement exposure. Your engagement exposure, kind of like a camera, always needs to be widening. Like the aperture has to keep growing with your audience. And what's one of the best ways to do that? Events, because there's pre-event stuff you can do, there's during the event, and then there's post-event. You can repurpose the event, and you just build up this wave of engagement that pays itself off at some point.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And you can start interacting. See, there's a lot of, my mind's just going crazy right here, right? Because there's a lot of cool things that you can do with this stuff. I mean, granted, you're probably going to be able to offset some of those costs for those major events if you even start doing small little charges for some of these community events, right? So the cost is so low for these initial virtual events that you can start allocating some of that revenue towards these major events and really blow up the number of people that show up to these things. Because, I mean, right now, everything's expensive. I mean, I literally go to Walmart for my groceries and I'm like doubling my grocery bill just because of inflation itself. So to be able to go and travel somewhere to have an event, a lot of people would love to do that. They just aren't in a financial position to do so. But if you can lower the cost of entry to the event because of all the engagement that you had ahead of time, that makes it so much better. I mean, that makes it so much more feasible for people to even show up. So,
I mean, I just saw something from SaaStr, right? SaaStr is a massive event. It's happening next week. It happens in the West Coast, California. Tons of people, but Jason, who runs SaaStr, said his overall expense this year is 20% higher than the last time he did it. 20%. And he actually broke down all of his expenses in this tweet. I think they were about like $8 or $9 million. 20% on 8 or 9 million. That's like, $1 or $2 million additional. So you nailed that. And also for you, I would ask you a question. Like, have you ever done an event for this audience? Or you think, because like you have like 1,000 episodes, right? It's amazing what you've done with this podcast. You have a captive audience. You could bring them together through online and in-person events, I think. And actually probably they'll get a lot out of it, right? And like, I'm just curious, have you ever done that or thinking about doing it?
I have not, but that's like, I feel like we're connected somehow because that's leading up to my next question. What are some strategies that maybe, I or anybody else who's starting to get into this space who would, I've thought about doing events, but exactly what you described, the cost of doing an event is just ridiculous. The planning, the time it takes to do that, the team necessary to put it together, it becomes like super cumbersome. So I haven't done it, right? But if I can do something like this where I kind of work my way in, I can dip my toes in the water a little bit at a time, create some event strategies here in the virtual space, and then kind of use those as stepping stones to then later do something bigger. That's me taking the steps necessary to do that. So what are some good strategies that you've seen people use, especially like on Airmeet, to make an event powerful and valuable to the people attending?
So I'm gonna give you advice right now. Like, I'm gonna tell you what I would do if I was you. Like, this is just straight up to you.
Just do it.
So you've had like 1,000 guests, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would create a thematic event series. Could be 8 episodes, could be 10 episodes. We're doing this right now at Airmeet. It's called Eventions, right? Event, but it's Eventions, so it's a play off the word. But
Perfect.
it's 10. It's 6 episodes now. It's gonna be 10 for the first season. But we are getting people to register. You can register once for all of the 6 to 10 episodes. And for you, I would have like your top podcast guests come back where people can ask those guests questions. They could do breakout rooms. They could get to know those guests more intimately than they can right now and be way more interactive, right? And you maybe like look at like you said, doing some special things where the guest brings their book and they give away some books, and you incur a small cost to that event, and you still make these free though, in my opinion. The reason why you make them free is the thing you do when people register for those events is you ask them a few questions. You ask them, of course, their email, where you're located, and a few other things that you could use to then personalize the follow-up and also use to plan where you would maybe do your first in-person event, because you're trying to just get data about your audience. The great thing with online digital events compared to in-person events is there's a ton of opportunities to collect data. So if you were doing one of these events with one of these guests you have, and you played a game with, say, Kahoot integrated into the event experience, or just did simple polls, simple Q&A that people could answer, all of those questions that they answer, all of the things they're talking about can be collected and organized on the back end. And you can use that to plan your event strategy. Not only your event strategy, your content strategy for future episodes, future guests, future whatever, right? Now you just built up a captive email list as well. Like, great, I just got people to sign up for this. They're excited about this. Then you syndicate these 8 or 9 or 10 episodes back onto YouTube. You SEO them, right? You cut them up all into clips, right? Video, audio, stuff like you're doing now, I'm sure. But like, it's just a different type of experience. You can string together what the audience is saying because you're getting real-time feedback in these events. And by the way, you could even go as far as to say with Airmeet, you can stream directly to YouTube or to LinkedIn or to Facebook, kind of like we're doing right now, but people could be listening to it also in the Airmeet experience, right? So like you could build up an audience at the same time. So there's a lot you could do there. At the end of the day, build the email list, get more data about your audience, use that data to help them get a better experience down the road, and ultimately use that data to understand, if I did an in-person event, which location would I do it in? How do I feel like that I could get a good audience? How do I make sure it's at least break even for me? If not, make some money, things like that.
Let's talk a little bit about the registration process, because I love that, right? Having a thematic series event and getting some of that data point. When you use platforms, each of them might or might not integrate with maybe, like, for example, landing pages that we create. So when we sign up for AirZoom, we want to put on one of these events. What's the registration process like, and how can I ensure that I'm getting the data that I'm looking for when I'm creating one of these events?
It's a great question. It's super easy with Airmeet. You could either embed our registration form onto your page, or you could take your registration form and integrate it with Airmeet. Most people, it depends on what system you're using for your CMS. You know, we integrate with HubSpot. We integrate with a few others. We have a WordPress thing, but most people just say, look, it's super easy to take our registration form. You can just decide how to style it, however like matches your website, and you just embed it into that. And as soon as people start filling that out, it can go into Airmeet, but it could also go into a number of different marketing automation or CRM systems or database systems, or you can just connect with Zapier. We have tons of Zaps you could set up. And there you go. And once you start doing that, you could either use your own email marketing system to keep people notified about the event and what's going on, or we have one built in. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create like a seamless integrated experience for your attendees, both pre-event, during the event, and post-event. And that's ultimately, like, you know, we're just trying to keep it like simple. Ultimately, we're just trying to make this simple for the business, the person hosting the event, and the attendee. Our philosophy is put the attendee at the center of the event. And that's where I think we're a little bit different from Zoom. Zoom is like all about like, look, we're just trying to help you have a meeting. We're not trying to purposely build our technology for attendees so that they can get really connected to the brand. They can get connected to the speaker. They can get connected to sponsors or partners, or get connected to each other in a real meaningful way. We're just trying to help you to just have a conversation. We're taking that up a notch and saying, no, we want to help you get connected to all those different things during a big or small digital event. And in an in-person event, we're trying to do the same thing. Like, we had a customer today, it was out of Dublin. It was like a huge event, thousands of people, 140 speakers, multi-day event actually. And they're using Airmeet to stream it around the world. And it's, you know, it's a construction management event. All types of businesses are doing this. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what business you're in, you're still in the business of dealing with people. Those are your customers. And so you got to make sure that you're keeping them happy. And guess what? Meeting up at Starbucks for a 15-minute conversation just isn't going to cut it when you're going one to many. So you got to have a different approach. You said it's custom. Your platform is designed around the person who shows up to the event, right? The end user. So when people sign up for these events, is it something that they got to download an app for? Can they use a browser? Does it really matter?
Browser only. Another difference with Zoom. You know, you can just use a web URL. And then if you're on mobile, we have an Android and iOS app. I was actually just on an event last night through our iOS app. Seamless. That's it. No downloading of an app.
That's even better, because Honestly, that's I've hopped on some other platforms sometimes, and having to download the app kind of really takes away from, I got to get a new app on my phone. Do I have enough space? Does it even work right? Do I got to register for something else? All kinds of questions that come up, dude. I mean, events are a thing that's happening in when you have clients that come on stage, they do their stuff, they pitch their products or whatever, they come off stage in real life, they're always bombarded by everybody who was there, right? Asking questions. I want to have a conversation. I want to have that one-on-one with you. Is there something similar to that on the digital front for speakers who come off the stage?
Yeah, we have a few different options. One is we have this thing called the Fluid Lounge. So imagine it's like the first iteration of almost like an omniverse or metaverse type experience, that's contained. So you go into this part of the platform, and the customer can upload any image they want to put in the background of this space. So you could have an image of like a virtual room, you could have an image of a map, you could have anything you want. And as people join in, you see each person's face just as a circle. And you use your mouse or your keys to move around. And as soon as you start to get closer to someone, just like in a hallway or in a room, you start to pick up their audio. And as you get a little bit closer, you start to see their video show up. So, as you get really close, you're right next to someone, right? So it's like a person can have like 8 to 10 people next to them, right? If you have more than 8 or 10, unless you're shouting, you really can't pick up on the conversation, just like real life. So a lot of our customers use that to have like speaker meets and greets after the session. So people can be floating around the venue, this virtual venue, virtual room, and bump into people, bump into speakers, bump into other things, super seamless. The other way people do it is we have this thing called like virtual tables, the lounge. And you could brand and design these tables to have as many people as you want, up to 125, I guess, technically. But you could join a table, and that's like a mini Zoom within this event, because you could have your camera on, off, it doesn't matter. And you could just meet people and have a conversation with them about anything, right? You could pop around different tables. So anyway, there's a few different ways you could do it. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, content is great, because content does make an event really great. But like you just nailed it. What makes an event really, really great? It's the people, and it's the conversations and connections you make at that event.
Yeah, and it's funny because the way you described the virtual meeting was like I would experience it at a network event. Just literally, I kind of recognize that person. Let me get close. Oh, I know what they're talking about. And now they see me. Now you're part of this conversation. You're part of the group, and you're bringing that same feeling into a virtual space. So that to me is pretty freaking amazing. If people want to get a hold of you, if they want to use this platform, give them the skinny. What do they need to do?
I mean, you can see below, just go to airmeet.com. You could find me on LinkedIn, Twitter. Happy to show you around. At the end of the day, though, we believe in this idea of event-led growth. You can grow your business using events, kind of like product-led growth, community-led growth. Like, that's what we believe in. Send me an email, mark.kilens@airmeet.com. I'm super passionate about helping entrepreneurs, CEOs, marketing leaders, whomever, just grow their business with a strategy that is really, I think, underutilized. One quick thing, we're doing a survey with Forrester right now. It's not live yet, but we just got the data back literally 2 days ago. One of the biggest things we found in this survey is there's a skills gap with marketers and other people in businesses around how to actually put on great digital and virtual events. People don't want to do in person for the most part. But that's one of the reasons why I think people are kind of like sick and tired, and they're like, oh, what's going on? Because people just don't know how to do great virtual experiences. And that's going to have to change.
Yeah, it's where the future is heading. I mean, to me, you're already ahead of the game. The feeling that you have when you're walking around in a virtual event, if it's parallel to what you're experiencing in the real world, you're already ahead of the game. You're giving me the ability to stand on a stage. You're giving me the ability to step off the stage and still interact with the audience. And you're giving me the ability to have some fun online. Like, that's some good. I don't have to fly anywhere. I get to do it right here in the comfort of my own home, half dressed, right? Wearing shorts at the bottom, but business attire on the top. You should be good to go. Dude, ladies and gents, like, that's really what it's all about. You need to find ways to connect with people. I don't care if it's starting a podcast, if it's audio only, video only, start a YouTube channel, put out content, shorts. I don't care what it is. Events are going to push a lot of those platforms and help you build the following that you're looking for. So if you're looking for a platform, make sure you guys check it out. Airmeet.com, www.airmeet.com. Check it out. Give it a whirl. You guys have a 30-day demo or anything like that going on, Mark?
We got a free product. You can sign up for free and host up 100 people in one of these events. That being said, our free product in about 2 months is going to get infinitely better. We're going to be giving away even more of these engagement features. Like this fluid space thing isn't in the free product yet. It will be at some point soon. But yeah, you can sign up for the free product and check it out.
There we go. Free. That means you are out of excuses, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a platform that you can use, airmeet.com, and it's free. Check it out. Of course, you're going to have some of the paid features that you're going to absolutely love. But like, if you're like me, you're going to start off with the free version. You're going to test it out. You'll probably fall in love with it. And then you're going to be like, yeah, why am I not using all the other features? It only makes the show better. Airmeet.com is where you guys got to go to check it out. Mark, I got one more question, man. You've done a lot of podcasts. You told me at the beginning you were having fun. Now we're at the end. What was your experience like with the Business Bros?
Oh, it's amazing. I love the energy. Love how it was super natural. Like the conversation just flowed. It wasn't over prepped. Like extremely well done. 6 stars.
Nice.
Not 5 stars. 6 stars.
Nice. And we know how to make snow now, ladies and gentlemen. That's something that I didn't know before. So for those of you who are out there, go back to the beginning. We talk about making snow. All right, Mark, thank you very much for coming on the show, man. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, airmeet.com. You're planning on doing some virtual events. You want to do it right. You want to do it where people will experience, the experience they'll have is a fun one. Airmeet.com. Make sure you guys check that out. We'll catch you guys again on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz